Confirmation hearings begin today for President-elect Trump's cabinet nominees. First up, Senator Jeff Sessions for the position of Attorney General. Joining us now with more on what we can expect from the hearings, Mississippi Senator Roger Wicker. Senator, it's good to see you. And we hear bluster, whenever we go through a lot of these things. But, numbers are numbers. And given the 2013 Harry Reid move on filibustering, are any of these appointments likely to get bogged down, in your view, realistically?
I think they're all in pretty good shape. And I have to tell you, listening to your previous segment, I feel pretty good about the markets for the coming months, because I think what we heard is prompt confirmation of cabinet members will help the markets. Tax reform passed by the House and Senate and sent to the president will help the markets. So all of that in the previous segment was music to my ears, because I think we'll be able to accommodate your guests on those and other issues.
Well, you want to get that thing out of your ear before 7:30, because okay. we have Larry Summers coming on to talk about how ill-designed and misconceived the corporate tax reform plan is. Probably not a big surprise. We're not stopping the presses that he doesn't like the plan, but he's got a lot of concerns with it. A lot of worry about Obamacare and what happens there. Do you have any insight on whether it's possible to do this where it doesn't become Trump care and it becomes owned by the Republicans? The Democrats are licking their chops to try and move this albatross onto the other side.
Well, I'm astonished to think that the Democrats would try to make something political out of this. Listen, Obamacare was one of this president's chief accomplishments. It took them a full year to pass it. It was January 2010 before it was enacted, and then it's taken years and years to implement. So clearly we're not going to be able to turn it around on a dime, but we're using reconciliation. We are starting this week, and we think we'll have a vehicle over to the House in a few days. I hope we can do as much of the replace part of Obamacare on reconciliation as we possibly can. And so by the time it's gone through the Senate, the House, perhaps a conference between the House and Senate, but back for final votes in the Senate, I think there will be a number of items of replacement as well as the repeal of Obamacare. And frankly, shame on us if we don't do it. We campaigned on this. The president-elect said this would be one of his chief goals early on, and we're going to keep our promise to the American people. I think they want us to do that.
How many repeals have there been? So, and it's been years, ever since, the 2010 when it was passed, Republicans have had the stated objective of repealing it. I mean, if they don't have a replacement idea yet, it's going to look bad, Senator.
Well, there are a lot of replacement ideas, and let me reiterate, this reconciliation bill, which we are voting on today, by the time it goes through the process and returns to us from the House of Representatives, will have a number of the items that can qualify under the reconciliation and not defeat the privilege of a simple majority vote. Now, there are some replacement items that can't fit in a reconciliation bill, and we're going to have consensus on those. It takes 60 votes on those. But we know what we want to do, and we want to repeal the mandates.
Right.
We want association health plans. We want to send Medicaid to the states where we think they can run it more efficiently. So there are just a number of items that will come together in the next several weeks. And a lot of the replacement will be part of reconciliation. Yeah. And we could do that with a simple majority.
You've got the Democrats laying in wait for you to screw this up. I can just tell you, if you take 20 million people.
I'm really astonished that they would be trying to.
Yeah, I know you are. Yeah, I know you are. But
thanks for letting me know.
Yeah, well, that's good. The sarcasm's loud and clear. But you got 20 million people. You could, the networks or the mainstream media, you get 10 of them that lose their coverage, and that's good for 6 months. That's good for 6 months of news every night on the national news. If 10 of them, and you're talking about 20 million, and you're going to hear
Well, that's good advice.
Grandma's being pushed off a
do
cliff.
that.
Grandma's being you're going to hear it all. And I mean, it's just pretty effective. I mean, it's almost booby-trapped for you guys when you own this thing. It's ready to self-destruct on its own. Six different Republican senators that are leading the Huffington Post. That's their story today. Another 6 senators. Republicans say, go slow, be careful. This is going to be a political football, Senator.
I think it's a good idea to be careful, and I've said all along, we're not going to send anybody out to the curb. We're going to take care of those who, through no fault of their own, relied on the law as it was passed, and we're going to make sure there's a soft landing. But I think there is a better way to provide more coverage for the millions of Americans who still don't have adequate coverage and who are having the promises made to them broken every day.
Senator, I wanted to ask you separately just about the hearings and nomination process that we're going to be seeing over the next couple of weeks. It's beginning literally right now. And some of the questions about conflicts of interest and the ethics office, which has put out some information about how they don't feel that they have seen enough from some of these nominees. Is that something that concerns you?
Well, let me just say from our side of the aisle, there is a concern that we're being a little bit slow-walked by the Office of Congressional Ethics. But I would say that by the time there is a final vote on the Senate floor, all of the information that has typically been provided to the Senate will be available. It's not unusual to go forward with hearings without having quite everything ready, and really this is not much different from the process that occurred.
So when the ethics office says that this is the ethics office has suggested that usually they do have the information before the hearings. You're saying that's not the case?
There's a concern, frankly, that we're not getting full cooperation from the ethics office. Yes, sir.
Cooperation from the ethics office or the Trump appointees nominees? No,
actually, there's a concern that the ethics office may actually be slow-walking some of the information. We're going to get to the bottom of that. But let me just say again, by the time these nominees are voted on by the full Senate, we'll have all the information that the American people generally have with regard to
that's a big accusation. The ethics office is not being ethical in this instance, if that's what you're saying. You're saying that they're slow-walking you.
Yes, I'm saying there's a concern.
Okay, we're going to have to look into that.
Senator Rebecca Patterson, thanks so much for joining us today. I'm the investor who was talking in your ear about seeing progress to keep the market supported. And one thing that the investor community is wondering a lot in terms of the Affordable Care Act and changes to that is what happens to that 3.8% tax. Do you think that's something that we could see in a package when it gets put together? Could that tax be removed, and could that be done through reconciliation?
Well, it certainly could be done through reconciliation. I'll tell you, I'm not on the working group that's involved in that. Let me just say also that there's going to be a need for some of that current revenue to be used for the replacement aspect of this. And so I can't give you any assurance that it will or will not remain in place.
Senator, back to the ethics.
It's a matter of discussion right now.
I think
back to the ethics office. I'm curious, how will you investigate this concern? Who investigates the ethics office?
Well, we're expressing concerns to the ethics office that they act expeditiously as we're being requested to act expeditiously. And let me just reassure the viewing public, I think by the time this is all said and done and the Senate votes, we'll have all the information we need, and there'll be a comfort level among the public and also our friends in the press.
Senator, is there an example that you can point to of a situation where you're aware of a nominee that's provided information to the ethics office that has not been provided to you, or that the ethics office has suggested has not been provided to them but actually has?
I'm not going to be any more specific than that. There's a concern that the ethics office needs to speed up the process.
Are you looking into this concern actively right now,
Absolutely,
Senator?
yes. We discussed it among members yesterday, yes.
So Cory Booker is going to testify against another senator. That's rare. I mean, we've come off 6 years, or I don't know how long, the Harry Reid sort of Senate that we've all gotten used to. Is it going to be more of the same, do you think, in the new administration, the Trump administration in the Senate?
Well, Cory Booker is a friend of mine. I wish he weren't doing this. I think it's really atypical of him. And I was listening early on some of the talk shows this morning. Some of the issues being mentioned, I'm voting on final passage of the Violence Against Women Act. I mean, there was a jurisdictional issue there involving Native American reservations that needed to be resolved. A number of us were concerned about that provision. To take a vote on a certain piece of legislation and say that a yes vote or a no vote disqualifies someone to be Attorney General, I think is a leap. Frankly, the senators have known Jeff Sessions for 20 years now. He was elected in 1996. I think they know his heart and they know he'll be fair and he will enforce the law as it's written. And I think there'll be an overwhelming bipartisan support for Jeff Sessions.
All right, Senator, thank you very much. I hope to see you again
quite welcome.
this morning. Good having you on. Thanks.
Thank you.